2. Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. This guy has been a recurring character in my baseball life and travels, and he always pops up somewhere on my timeline in the era of Twitter. We haven't gotten together in a couple of months to talk baseball. Since then, I think the Orioles went from being a 300 team to being a 300 team. Rob Neyer is here. He is a commissioner of baseball out on the western part of the United States. He is a longtime baseball aficionado, stat nerd, Sabre guy, fun guy to talk to, and writer of writings, and was chronicled in an Athletic piece by Corey Brock about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at The Athletic about commissionership. What's going on, man? Good to have you aboard. I've always thought you were the commish, Rob Neyer.
Things have been great. We just recently wrapped up my second West Coast League season, and being the commissioner during the season is a thrill and a joy every day, but it's also really tiring. So it's nice to have a few minutes to catch my breath.
You know, I chased you down when Adley Rutschman signed around here and talking about what the league represents and what the job represents. And look, I'm going to be writing a letter to Rob Manfred around here about the future of the Baltimore Orioles, which is one of the reasons I called you, being out where you are, where they're trying to lure baseball and all of that. But you see baseball a little differently, I think, in regard to your commissionership, in regard to the league out there, in regard to knowing people in the game when Adley Rutschman was signed from your area a couple of months ago. Tell me about the baseball as you know it and what your league represents, because it's very, very different than, hey, how do we fill our ballpark with 40,000 people and you sell a franchise for $1.5 billion, right?
Well, yes, but I will say this. It's interesting. One thing I've discovered is that many of the emotions and the concerns are not all that different at my level, in collegiate summer baseball, than in the major leagues. I always hasten to assure people that I'm not saying that my job is the same or just as hard as Rob Manfred's job, but I think many of the same dynamics are at play. I mean, obviously the money's much smaller in the West Coast League with 12 collegiate summer teams, but everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to, at the very least, not lose money year in, year out, and everybody wants to get as many fans into the ballpark for the games as they can. So I don't know if I'm a commissioner or not. I know it's my title. I don't know if I'm a real commissioner, but it sure feels like it sometimes.
Rob Neyer, he is the writer of writings and has been commissionering. How did all this? I mean, I know the Athletic story delves, but how did all this sort of happen for you to wind up being the guy and you're throwing your hat into the ring to do this job that probably, to your point, it's allowed you to understand baseball even better at an advanced age, right when we thought we knew everything, right?
Yes, exactly. That's been the great blessing for me is a completely new, different way for me to learn about the game, learn about how it's played, not only on the field, and there's been some of that too, but especially off the field. It's just been great, and I just sort of fell into it. I gave a talk at an annual baseball banquet here in Portland, Oregon, year and a half ago, and the man who has run the Corvallis Knights, Dan Siegel, who I believe you spoke to about Adley, actually.
I did.
Dan was in the audience, and at that time, the league just happened to be looking for a new commissioner, and for whatever reason, Dan thought I might be a good fit, and we got together for brunch one morning, and he recommended me to the board of directors, all the other owners, and before you knew it, there I was. And it was certainly nothing I ever thought I would get to do, nothing I ever aspired to. Who would? But it happened.
Rob Neyer is all things baseball, and has this taken away from your time to enjoy the grand old game here this summer and the lack of pennant races in the American League and the lack of quality teams outside New York, Houston, and L.A. that we could sit here and talk about? I mean, we're in Baltimore, dude. It's if it's not Chris Davis chasing down the manager in the dugout, it's the rumors that Portland's coming to steal our team. So,
well, I would say that the Orioles are not going anywhere. That's my first reaction to what you said. I don't think anybody else in the league is going anywhere either, except maybe the Rays someday. But otherwise, I think basically every franchise or every team that we see now is safe. I really believe that. No, I am able to keep track. I don't pay as much attention during our season, which runs from June through mid-August, as I do the rest of the season. I do listen to a lot of games, major league games on the radio, on my phone actually, but they're the radio broadcasts all season long. But now that our season's over, then I really shift back into full major league mode and will pay a lot more attention and listen especially to the games that have some bearing on the postseason as we head down the stretch.
All right, so for the Orioles, look, I think the move is certainly down the line, around the corner, where the league is. But are you not concerned about the game? I mean, I'm here where no one's watching, talking, breathing baseball in a lacrosse community where the football team's trying to figure it out, in now a pinched place, right, where the D.C. baseball thing is a bigger thing than the Baltimore baseball thing, and it probably will forever be a bigger thing than the Baltimore baseball thing from a where they can sell tickets, who they can sell sponsorships to. I'm sure you read some of the president's tweets or, what falls out of that tree about my town, and we're now 2 years up on a lease, and I know they have bigger fish to fry. I mean, I know Oakland's in trouble and Tampa's going to Montreal. All of this other stuff is happening, but I am concerned about the game and the Players Association and the brawl they're going to have over these sort of Adam Jones deals and where the money's going in the sport. It's a pretty complex time for baseball, and I don't see sort of this blue sky of growth that maybe 30 years ago everybody in the room just felt arrogant about it. If they're feeling arrogant about their place in the sports lexicon in America, then that's an arrogance that's not well worn right now.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Nestor. So I'm not sure where to start. Let me just throw a couple of things at you. One, as I'm sure you know, MLB's revenues overall go up every year. Now, that doesn't mean that more people are coming to the games. Clearly, it means they're figuring out ways to make money, whether it's sponsorships, selling things on the web, apps, all this stuff.
And gambling's coming right around the corner.
And gambling is coming, yes. And who knows how much money will result from that. Does that mean the sport is healthy? Not necessarily. It means they're going to keep making money. But there's more to life than that, at least for some of us.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just woke up. The Orioles have made a lot of money. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Peter's made a lot of money. The Orioles are not healthy. I live here. It's not healthy. There's nothing healthy about the brand, the franchise, what it means, who cares about it, who's willing to pay, and where the stadium's located, which is a beautiful stadium. But we have some issues here in Baltimore we're going to have to sort through, and Peter's never been a guy with a shovel to do that, right? And he's certainly not going to have that at this point. But the Orioles were a really important part of our community that feels sort of ghosted at this point in some way, you know?
Right. And look, I think that it's been, obviously, we and I have been talking about these issues for quite a while, and there's no overnight fix, but and everybody's different. One of the things that I've realized as commissioner of my little league is that from the outside it might look like teams are basically the same, franchises basically are doing the same things. Once you get inside, you realize everybody's different. Different cities have different dynamics, different ownerships have different, it's all different. And I think that's true in the majors as well. So we can't just say, well, the Orioles can just do what the Cubs and the Astros did, right? The Astros
or that the little sports bar that the Cardinals built's going to save them.
Right.
Yeah,
and the Astros 5 years ago or 6 years ago, they had a broadcast with a 0 rating. Literally, not a single viewer was tracked by Nielsen. And now they're exceptionally successful, both on the field and at the gate. So these things can turn around, and I think the potential is absolutely there in Baltimore. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. And the problem, as you know, is that there are more teams trying to do what the Astros and Cubs did than the standings can bear, essentially. You can't have 8 teams can't do it. There's just not enough. There aren't enough championships to be had. So that's the tricky part, is how do you become not just a team that's trying to do what the Cubs and Astros did, but to be the one team out of the 6 or 8 or 10 that actually makes it work. But I do think it can happen, and I do think they have a good management team, and I won't be surprised if the Orioles are in the playoffs 3 years from now. I just won't.
Rob Neyer making all sorts of that's orange music to our ears around here. The anatomy of a modern baseball game, Powerball, now almost a year old for you,
Yep.
and exploring some of the modern issues. The one thing, the difference between when Powerball went on sale back October 9th of last year and now is like the Orioles have a program, right? So we can talk about the franchise and the money and where they're going to play and who's going to come and who's going to buy sponsors, who's going to own the team, all of that. But the one thing for sure is that the new group is doing things differently, and throughout baseball now, being feated as being on the come. They're a top half minor league team now instead of bottom 2.
Right.
Quickly too. It happens quickly.
Yeah, it can happen. I mean, a great example is the most recent example is the Twins, who were a basket case just 2 years ago. And they were said to have all these great young players and prospects, but many of them simply weren't panning out. Miguel Sano, Byron Buxton in particular, had not lived up to their supposed promise. They brought in a new management group, and then a year later, new coaching staff, and all of a sudden the Twins are one of the best teams in the league. So it can happen sooner than we think. There aren't any guarantees, but first you have to build that. If you're trying to do what the Twins did and what the Orioles are trying to do, et cetera, you have to have that foundation of young talent, or none of the rest of it matters. So that's, for people who want to know how things are going for the Orioles, it is as simple, essentially, as tracking their ranking, whether by Baseball America or whomever, in the prospect ratings. When your talent base is bottom 5 in the majors, you're not going to be rebuilding quickly. But once you get into that top half and move up a little bit, ideally, because you draft well, sign good players out of the Dominican Republic or wherever, then you've got a chance to do something.
We were winning a couple years ago. I call you. We talk about the beer league softball approach of everybody hits a home run, every inning. The Orioles have that with the pitching staff now. I mean, we are going to just absolutely create records that you would think would be sort of DiMaggio or Maris-esque with how many home runs they're going to give up. I don't know, with the tanking phenomenon and no one sort of stepping in to find out where the floor is. Maybe some pitchers will suck worse, but setting the record on August 20th, that's pretty ripe. That's pretty fresh what they're doing this year, right?
It is. Look, I think one of the things that we still are wrapping our brains around is what's happened to the baseball. And people who tell you it's about other things are they're just not paying enough attention to the actual work that's been done. It's almost completely the baseball, and we're seeing a lot of records fall. We're seeing records in terms of giving up home runs, records in terms of hitting home runs, and there's no end in sight. I suspect we'll have more records next year unless MLB takes some steps to deaden the lively baseball a little bit. But I don't give full credit to teams and players who set records for home runs, and I don't hold it much against teams and pitchers who give up a lot of home runs, because that's just the way the game is now.
They're trying everything, though, right? I mean, and through all of this, it's going to be a pretty good October, right? We're going to have some pretty good baseball teams and something interesting to watch when the Yankees and Astros strap it up for 7 for real, or if somebody comes in and wrecks the party or whatever. But some pretty decent teams and some decent races in the National League down to the wire.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the National League is going to be a lot of fun in September, I think. Not in the National League West so much, obviously, but the Central is could be a lot of fun. It's interesting to see the Cubs sort of fall back to the pack. And the American League, the AL Central, both the Centrals should be good. The AL Central could be really interesting. I want to see how this Indians-Twins thing plays out. And the wild card again there. I mean, the second wild card this year is a real boon, because otherwise, if it were like it was not so long ago with only one wild card, it wouldn't be that interesting, actually, most likely down the stretch. But this should be good, and I would agree with you that we could see some really interesting matchups in October. Now, part of the reason it's going to look interesting is because you're going to have these teams who piled up a ton of wins, and of course they were able to do that to some degree because they played so many teams that weren't trying to win this season. So it's a little bit of fool's gold, just like all the home runs are. But no, I think there's a lot of talent. Yankees, Astros is certainly compelling, but frankly, I'd love to see the Twins knock off the Yankees finally after all these years. That would be a lot of fun.
Well, Randy, we got football season. The Tigers and the Orioles will get together and the second weekend of September try to figure out who's going to get the Adley Rutschman of next year. Rob Neyer is the writer of all writings and an author and a commissioner, and a great piece written about him out at the Athletic. King for a day. Writer turned commissioner Rob Neyer embraces the latest chapter of his baseball life written by Corey Brock. You can go figure that out and figure out Rob on Twitter and Powerball the book. When's the next book, dude? You're writing of writings, or what are you doing?
That's a good question. I had a book idea about the history of baseball superstars that I really wanted to work on. I still think it's a great idea, but so far I haven't been able to convince anybody. I got to either work hard on that or come up with something else soon, because I got to do something in the off season. I'm going to be commissioner for a while, and there's stuff to be done, but it's not a full-time job, and my wife's going to kill me if I don't find something else to do with myself this fall.
Don't go trying to steal the Orioles. Don't be involved with PortlandBaseball.Neyer.
I will tell you, no joke, I would never get involved in taking another city's team. I just don't. I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
You're like Glenda, the good commissioner.
Couldn't do it.
Hey, last thing for you, just because I'm nerding out today, and I'm wearing my Clemente 21 hat, right? Because it was Clemente's birthday, so I'm honoring Roberto and where we are. The other day, on his birthday Sunday, somebody shared on my Facebook the video of the right field throw from the right field wall at Memorial Stadium. And I haven't seen that in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like, the Orioles used to play the Pittsburgh, and I never could figure out why they played the Pittsburgh World Series during the rain delay, because we lost that one, that they didn't play the Reds more often or the Phillies more often. But all during my childhood, the rain delay, they would show the Pittsburgh. And I just haven't seen it forever. Now I'm 50 years old, and I watch a lot of baseball, and we've seen guys get bigger and stronger and faster and steroids and all that stuff. Why have we never, ever, ever, ever seen anybody can throw a ball like that? Why have I never seen that? It almost looks like a video trick. Like, literally, when you look at it, it almost looks like I've never seen anyone throw a baseball from the right field wall 330 feet to home plate like that ever. Maybe Dave Parker in the All-Star, it's something like that. But why is that Clemente thing is almost supernatural 40, 50 years later, right?
The only throw I would compare it to that I've ever seen is Bo Jackson throwing out Harold Reynolds.
Okay.
Right? Also from the corner, in his case, the left field corner, on the fly to get the guy at home. I think that those guys probably had the strongest throwing arms ever, at least in the last 50, 60 years. And why aren't there more guys like that now? It's a good question. I mean, it might be that if you have an arm like that now, they turn you into a pitcher when you're 14.
Well, you're always hitting a cutoff guy, too. You never have any reason to throw the ball from the right field wall to home plate
that's
try.
Part of it, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that Bo Jackson, for example, he just didn't care about cutoff men. He would always throw it to the plate as hard as he could. most of his throws were nowhere near the plate. People think he had a great arm. He had a strong arm.
He had a great arm
once. He wasn't
once.
accurate. The thing about Clemente was he was also incredibly accurate, which is really what distinguished him.
Absolutely. Well, I got anytime I get you on, I can love up Roberto. I'm going to do it. So, Rob, take care of yourself. Always great to visit with you. Good luck.
Take
and
care,
let me
buddy.
know when the
Good
next
talking
book's
to you.
up. All right. Rob
Appreciate it.
Neyer, the writer of writings and the commissioner of the West Coast League. He still makes time for us in Powerball. Go check him out anywhere books are sold and great baseball is written about or talked about. We're trying to talk about it around here. Nasty at WNST.net, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST, Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.